Dangote is trending again, and honestly, it never gets old. A few days ago, the man sat down, talked billions in IPO demand, announced plan to double his refinery capacity to 1.4 million barrels per day, and casually mentioned he's about to build another 17 billion US dollar refinery, this time in East Africa. Meanwhile, the Nigerian government just signed an MOU with Chinese companies to fix the same refineries they have been trying to fix since 2007. So today, we are going to do something simple. We are going to ask 5 questions. Who is Dangote? What actually happened in 2007? When did Nigeria lose the plot? Where does this story go from here? And most importantly, why does any of this matter to you? Let's get into it. First, who is Aliko Dangote? If you are Nigerian, you already know. But for context, as of May 2026, Dangote's net worth sits at approximately 35.9 billion US dollars on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Africa's richest man, one of a small number of individuals on the continent who has ever appeared in the global top 100. But here is what people forget. Dangote didn't just inherit wealth and protect it. He deployed it aggressively into things Nigeria said it would handle itself and didn't. And the refinery is the perfect example. As of May 2026, the Dangote Petroleum Refinery is operating at 99.4% capacity utilization, processing roughly 648,500 barrels of crude oil per day. For decades, Nigeria, Africa's largest crude producer, was paradoxically its largest importer of refined fuel. In 2026, that era is over. Let that sink in. Africa's largest oil producer was buying its own fuel back from other countries. And the man who fixed that is the same man Nigeria said no to in 2007. So, what actually happened in 2007? Dangote along Femi Otedola, yes, the same Otedola who recently visited the refinery, put forward a deal to buy 51% of the Port Harcourt refinery for 561 million US dollars and 51% of the Kaduna refinery for 160 million US dollars. Combined, that is 721 million US dollars for 2 refineries, with Nigeria keeping 49%. The exact same structure as the NLNG model that works brilliantly today. President Obasanjo approved the deal. Money changed hands. It was done. Then, the oil workers' union, PENGASSAN and NUPENG, went on strike. The argument, the refineries were undervalued. The 721 million US dollars was too cheap for national assets. The new president, Yar'Adua, cancelled the deals and refunded the money. The unions and NNPC promised, we will fix them ourselves. That promise cost Nigeria everything. When did the cost of that decision become undeniable? When NNPC's own numbers came out. From 2010 to 2023, 13 years, Nigeria spent 11 trillion 349 billion 583 million 186,313 naira 40 kobo. That is 11.35 trillion with a T. At the exchange rate of 460 to $1, that converts to roughly 25 billion US dollars spent on refineries that, at their best, ran at less than 15% capacity. In that same window, Dangote went from a cement magnate to the owner of the world's largest single train refinery, built from scratch with private money at a cost of 17 to 22 billion US dollars. So here's the brutal arithmetic. Nigeria spent 25 billion of public money and got nothing working. Dangote spent 22 billion of private money and built a refinery capable of supplying 100% of Nigeria's oil needs with a surplus for export. The men Nigeria called greedy in 2007 turned out to be more competent than every turnaround maintenance contract NNPC ever signed. Where does this story stand today, and where is it going? two places, and both of them are significant. Here in Nigeria, the new NNPC Group CEO just signed an MOU in Jiaxing, China, with two Chinese companies to co-own, fund, and operate the Port Harcourt and Warri refineries. When asked how much of the refinery China gets, the group CEO said, and I quote, "as much as required to get a sustainable deal." Pause on that and just think about it. Nigeria refused to give Dangote 51% in 2007, insisting on retaining majority control. Now, nearly 2 decades later, the government is handing an unspecified stake to foreign companies, and the public has no clarity on the terms. Whether that deal works or not remains to be seen, but the irony is loud. Meanwhile, Dangote is doing what Dangote does. He confirmed that the Lekki facility will be more than doubled within 30 months to reach 1.4 million barrels per day, which would make it by some distance the largest single refinery operation on the planet. And if that is not enough, he's now making a move to build a $17 billion, 650,000 barrels per day refinery in Mombasa, Kenya. Telling the Financial Times he prefers Mombasa because of its deeper ports and larger market. The man Nigeria rejected is now exporting the solution to the rest of the continent. And this brings us to the most important question. Why does this matter? It matters because this isn't just a Dangote story. It is a story about what Nigeria consistently does with its own potential. The refinery debate of 2007 wasn't really about valuation. It was about trust or lack of it. Nigerians didn't trust that Dangote and Otedola would run those refineries in the national interest. So we kept control. And then we watched that control disappear, one failed maintenance contract at a time. There's also a bigger economic lesson here. The Dangote refinery has attracted billions of dollars in investment interest ahead of its planned IPO in September 2026. Huge demand from both institutions and private investors, exceeding its intended placement size. That means the market, not government policy, has validated what Dangote built. Investors are voting with money, and that IPO, when it lists on the Nigerian exchange, could become one of the most significant wealth creation events for Nigerian retail investors in a generation. Nigeria has officially achieved net petrol export status. The Dangote refinery is supplying 80% of domestic demand while simultaneously fueling the economies of West Africa. Think about what that sentence means. We used to spend billions importing fuel. Now, we are selling it. That is a structural economic shift, and it happened because one man did what the government couldn't. So let's bring it back to where we started. In 2007, Nigeria had a chance. Dangote and Otedola showed up with $721 million and a plan. The unions said no. The president cancelled it, and NNPC spent the next 13 years burning $25 billion with nothing to show for it. Now the same man is worth $36 billion, running the world's largest refinery, about to double its capacity, planning a second one in East Africa, and Nigeria is handing its refinery to China on undisclosed terms. Was 2007 a mistake? Almost certainly. Can Nigeria still learn from it? Absolutely. Because the real question was never about Dangote. It was always about whether Nigeria was willing to trust its own people to build what government couldn't. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Nigeria have sold in 2007? And do you think the China deal will actually work this time? Like this video if you have learned something. Subscribe if you want more content like this. And share with someone who needs to understand how Nigeria actually works. Well, I will see you in the next one.